special, and we've got a room full of people. We've somehow managed to get a live audience. We think we might have did a bit of a miscommunication on the invite, but thanks everyone for joining us for live tasting. And
possible miscommunication, or people realised today was bonfire night and went to go and
no,
see some fireworks.
Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah, shit, sorry.
So we did our Christmas advent calendar for the first time this year, and part of that we have 4 specific festive themed beers, and we wanted to do a live tasting just of those beers, mainly because last year we tried to do it as part of the normal monthly YouTube live session, and we realised that the beers were out about 2 months before we got around to Christmas. So this year we decided to do it separately, so you can watch it when you whenever you like, and hopefully if you buy the beers you'll be able to tune in and catch up on our tasting notes for the beers. We've got 4 different beers to try. If you're at home, you'll only have those 4 beers to try if you bought a advent calendar, because one of the beers is a barrel-aged special edition, which we didn't have enough of to sell except for in the advent calendars. So if you're in the audience, you've got a bit of a treat, and if you're joining us at home, hopefully you've got the treat as well if you've got the box. So one thing to say is get your beers out of the fridge now. So of the 4 beers, 3 of them are stouts, so they will taste better when they're at room temperature. So take them out your fridge now. Leave the Dreams of Brew York in the fridge, because you'll appreciate that a little bit colder. And as and when we're on to the beers, we'll let you know with a small visual prompt of the can. We don't have our big visual prompts today, but we'll try and make it clear which beer we're drinking. So without further ado, Lee will tell you a little bit more, and I'll crack it open this morning.
And if you've tuned in tonight expecting our usual monthly session, you are 1 week early. That will be taking place next Friday. So yeah, the first beer we have up is called Fairy Tale of Brew York. So we started Brew York back in 2016, and we've been brewing an iteration of Fairy Tale of Brew York ever since the first Christmas. So we've changed it every time. It's always a 4.9% stout of some form. Most recently, it tends to be a milk stout. In earlier years, it has in fact been a white stout. I remember the first one we ever did, a little story we need to go through on that one perhaps in a bit. So every year we do this milk stout at 4.9, and we change the flavours and we change some of the other ingredients up each time. So what we've gone for this time, as a little bit of a homage to one of our favourite stouts, is a gingerbread stout. Now said that, I forgot the name of it. What was it?
Fairy Tale of Brew York.
No, the gingerbread stout.
The stout that he really likes is Hardywood.
Hardywood's gingerbread, yeah.
It's a really cool beer. It's brewed by an American brewery called Hardywood's, and one of our sales team used to work as the UK sales rep for Hardywood. So he used to always provide us with lots of sample bottles of this stout to try at festivals. Really, really good beer. If you ever get a chance to try it, it's about 11%. So you probably won't sip it as easily as you're going to sip this one, hopefully.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Nadia, our marketing manager, crawling along the floor in front of the camera so she doesn't appear on camera. So yeah, gingerbread stout we've got this time. So as with all of our stouts, they are quite complicated beasts. We use usually around about 7 or 8 different types of malt in there, and obviously the name is a nod to the Pogues song Fairy Tale of New York. Shouldn't be too hard to see what we've done with that one.
I don't remember that song. Give us a few notes.
What, the like radio friendly version? No, I'm not going to sing. Maybe after the 4 beers that will happen. When we need to evacuate the room, that can happen, but not right now.
So yeah, 4.9%. This is brewed specifically to be a bit more accessible than some of our other beers. So we brew it in cask, keg, and can. So obviously you guys have got the canned version. They're all the same ABV, 4.9%. It's stronger than some people tend to drink, but we find it works quite well. You get the balance right between being able to get the body in the beer, but also being able to taste the flavour. And as I mentioned earlier, if you get stouts out of the fridge before you drink them, they warm up, and it really helps you taste the different, malts mainly, but also in this case, some of the flavours we've incorporated into the beer. I'm taking your part. It's your beer, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean...
No, it's me. Sorry, I'm looking at prompts here that you guys can't see off camera.
It's because we jumped over the interim section of when I was supposed to do the running order. You ploughed straight into it. Yeah. So, yeah, anyway. So, in terms of the temperature, why that is important, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, your ability to perceive flavour is very temperature dependent. because 80% of what you perceive as flavour is aromatic. It's through your nose. And the colder something is, the less you are able to smell it. So these things like Guinness Extra Cold and so forth, that's not about making a better beer, that's making a beer you can taste less. Therefore, if you can't taste it, you can't be offended by it. So that's what these extra cold versions or drinks are about. So really, if you want to get maximum flavour out of something, especially these complex stouts, they need to be brought up to room temperature. Not room temperature, that would be something else entirely.
Yeah. Tangent there. So yeah, Lee mentioned we've been brewing this
very
one.
Freudian.
Yeah. Excuse me. So Lee mentioned we've been brewing this one since the first year we started. So back in it was 2016 when we launched the first ever one, Christmas 2016. We did a White Russian
eggnog.
An eggnog-inspired milk stout. Sorry, we've just done a White Russian white stout, which is why that's on my mind. But yeah, an eggnog-inspired white stout. So although it was technically a stout, we tried to replicate all the flavours you'd normally associate with a stout. It was actually looked like a pale ale. It was white in appearance, and that's because all the typical malts we'd use in a beer like this to try and get that nice toasted and coffee-like flavour, we avoid using. So we don't want any of the colour coming through. We just want to try and get those flavours into the beer somehow. So for the recent beer we brewed, which is called the Dude Abides. That one we used coffee, where we basically cold brew. We infused it.
Infused beans in it.
Coffee
cold,
beans.
yeah.
So you're not getting any of the colour. You're just getting the flavour coming off them. And then other tips and tricks we used on it.
Well, in that version and the original Fairy Tale of Brew York, we used nutmeg, and I think in the first one cinnamon. And the story I had to tell about that particular beer was, for those of you that are in the tap room, you'll have seen the little vessels that we have out there.
They were big at the time when we first started the brewery.
Yeah, well, we thought they were big at the time, and so we'd made this stout, so this white stout, and then to infuse it, we got a muslin bag, and we put like cinnamon sticks, and we had bourbon soaked oat chips, and we put them in this bag, and then we kind of had it suspended on a little bit of fishing wire inside the fermenter. And after about 2 days, Wayne tasted it and went, that's not doing it quick enough. Opened up the bag, poured it all in, not thinking that we've got a 1.5 inch port at the bottom. So how were we going to get all of that back out? The answer to how we had to get that back out was and look at the size of me, had to climb inside that vessel. And I forgot to turn the cooling off. And the cooling runs at -4. So I was in there with my back against a wall that's -4, with my knees up like that, digging down below me to try and pull out these cinnamon sticks and bits of bourbon wood. And I've never forgiven him.
This year, though, we moved away from that, and we moved into some, like Lee said earlier, the Hardywood-inspired gingerbread stout. So it was quite an interesting conversation. Everyone sat in the room and had put their ideas forward of what Christmas beer we'd like to brew this year, and we had a lot of suggestions. But one of the ones was the gingerbread one, and I distinctly remember us leaving the meeting saying, yeah, gingerbread it is this year, and then was getting a message from the sales team saying, I don't think we can sell a ginger stout. And we're like, we literally sat in a meeting and had this discussion. What do you mean you can't sell a gingerbread stout? Like, oh, gingerbread, yeah, we can sell gingerbread. Like,
you know what is the actual difference?
But yeah,
apart from
Nadia will tell you, a bit more spicy if we just went pure ginger. But yeah, it was very subtle, but we were confident in the style, and it sold so well. It's not the 1st of November, but it's 5th of November, and we've pretty much sold out of all our Christmas beers already, which is crazy considering we've now moved to a much bigger site in Oswaldwick, and we can brew maybe 10 times.
It's the 5th of November, and most of them have been sold out for weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, it's popular this year, and I personally think it's one of the best ones we've done for the accessible ones. We go on to the higher strength ones later, and they're getting better each year we try them. Yeah. So.
And if you do like this, then you have something to look forward to next year, because the next beer in the series, actually not the next beer, another beer in the series is Nightmare of Brew York. It's always the previous year's Fairy Tale brewed to twice the strength. So you'll have a 9.8% version of this to look forward to next Christmas.
And if you really, really like it, that 9.8% version, when we brew it, we will barrel age some in bourbon probably, and then in a year after that, we'll release the barrel aged.
And then in 2023, you can have the barrel aged version of it.
So yeah, these are pretty good. The ones to look forward to. Last year's was a good beer, which you'll hear about next because we've done it as Nightmare this year. But yeah, I'll save that one until we get onto that beer. But I think we've had quite a few questions already, haven't we?
I'm loving the little crouches people are doing to go past the camera. Oops. Do you think there is much difference in flavour between keg and can? If so, what is the difference? So between keg and can, there is unlikely to be much difference because you are producing those beers in the same way. So you are going to be what we call force carbonating them. So you're going to be introducing the carbonation into both of those styles of beer by using what is called a carbonation stone or a sinter. It's kind of like a ceramic stone you might have in an aquarium to trickle oxygen through it. We have one of those in our vessels, and you can trickle CO2 through it, and some of that absorbs into the beer. So for keg and can, same process. We then put some of it into a can, we put some of it into a keg. Where beers really differ is the difference between that and cask beer. Cask beer, you're not allowed to do that forced carbonation. Cask beer, as per the Canberra doctrine, has to be live. It has to have yeast present. It has to be the yeast that is introducing the CO2 into the beer. So the way in which you produce those kind of beers is you would stop the fermentation slightly before all of the sugar having been consumed. You would then put the beer into a cask and then put it into your cellar. Your yeast is then going to digest that final little bit of sugar, and in doing so create some CO2, and it can't go anywhere because you've put it in this sealed vessel at this point. So that then dissolves. So your yeast is creating the CO2. So that's the real difference. So can and keg, broadly the same. Cask is where it's a little bit different. Although these days, to confuse matters, you do have some breweries doing can-conditioned beer. So they're treating these little cans as essentially little casks.
So despite keg and can being technically the same beer, I personally find keg beer more enjoyable than canned beer. And that's, I think, because you tend to drink keg beer socially amongst friends and you stood at a bar or sat at a bar drinking it. So in that sense, it tends to be a little bit different for me. And then the other big difference is that when I'm sat at home having a beer, I'm usually sat on a couch. I don't usually go to a pub and sit on a couch. I'll usually be stood at a bar, so I'll be drinking it. So when I'm drinking a keg beer, it tends to feel different. So I tend to find when I drink lots of canned beer, I feel like bloated and gassy. But yeah, that's just a personal thing.
And of course, we've just extolled the virtues of drinking your beer a little bit warmer, as you do with the cask beer. You're going to perceive more flavour in it. And in the production method of keg and can, to be able to carbonate it, you have to chill it further to allow the CO2 to be absorbed. And in chilling it further, more of the other things fall out of the beer. Things like proteins that are going to make the beer feel thicker. So your cask beer tend to be a bit thicker, whereas the keg beers tend to be a little bit thinner. Okay.
What do you guys think of the artwork on the cans? Are you big fans? Leading question, because our one of the designers, Owen, owns United by Design, who do all our branding. He happens to be sat in the back of the room.
So we often give Owen a shout out, not knowing if he's watching. For once, we actually know he's watching. So yeah, shout out to Owen and the team at UBD, United by Design. So next question. Was there any Christmas food or sweet that you grew up with that inspired the beers or future beers? Well, I think you'd had the eggnog thing in your childhood, I was going to say.
No.
I hope you weren't
I didn't,
eggnog in childhood.
So I found a recipe to make eggnog at home, which involves a lot of bourbon, a lot of eggs, and lots of vanilla and other bits and pieces. So I remember making it maybe 5 years before we started the brewery for Christmas one year, and it being like a really popular thing. Then when we started the brewery, I was like, I wonder if we could do something similar and try and bring that into a beer. So that's kind of where the idea for that one came from.
But the ideas have come from all over. The one that we're going to be doing last tonight, barrel-aged Nightmare, was originally Fairy Tale 2 years ago, and that was inspired by a dessert that my Nana McNaughton, who's unfortunately no longer with us, used to make. She used to, every Boxing Day, we'd have this coffee and walnut ring, so it was always in this like ring mould, and I don't really like coffee, but for some reason in a cake with walnut, it works. I quite liked it, so yeah, a couple of years ago we did the Christmas beer based on that dessert.
That reminds me actually, because last year when it was Nightmare, before, so the pre-barrel aged version, Nadia, who if you're watching on home is off camera on the right, she just joined the, you'd only been working for us a couple of months, and I remember you baked a walnut cake for the photos for the beer, and we just all destroyed the cake instead. So it was really nice. So yeah, we'll...
And it's not made it into a beer yet, but Nadia keeps going on at us to try and make a beer that tastes like Stollen.
Oh yeah. And Lilith.
Yeah. And we've got the fantastic idea for the name. All the best ideas are Stollen. Come on.
Which leads probably on to this next question. So I bloody love the pun names. Who came up with them, and what was your favourite?
Oh, pun names.
Kylie Goes Lassie, my favourite.
That's not our favourite. No, that was not a great beer with a terrible name. Brand name was awesome though, obviously.
My favourite, well, who comes up with them? It's a team effort, but a lot of them come from Lee. So when you see a really random one, that's him. But yeah, we put it out. We have a group chat at work where anyone can put any ideas forward, and usually, quite often we get an idea before we actually brew the beer. So one great one that we came up with, or Sam, who's our what's her job title now?
Office manager?
No, she's export and office manager.
Sorry if you're watching, Sam, we should know that.
But she came up with Olivia Gluten Gone as a gluten-free.
Which is genius.
So it's a
that
great
is
name.
Genius.
But we didn't have a recipe.
Most of the time it's not Sam though, it's the wife.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So we've just been told off camera that Sam's wife comes up with a lot of the really good names, and Sam takes the credit.
And I think Sam and her wife might have been having a few cocktails the other night, because I got a list of these things.
All the names coming through.
So yeah, anyway.
But
yeah, the ideas come from all of it. I mean, one of my favourite names of all time is a beer that we just recently re-released, is Juice Campbell versus the Army of Dankness.
And yeah, for me, it's I do like pale beers, and I'm not a huge fan of New England IPAs, which is the style that it is. I prefer more traditional bitter West Coast than the more modern East Coast styles that are juicier. But Juice Campbell is one of those beers that gets me every time. I love the beer. It's just really easy drinking. It's 7.1%, but it doesn't taste anything near that.
It feels like it though. Have we any more? No, we've done both those. Right. So more coming in. Right, two for you. Right, first up. What was the best present you ever got in your Christmas stocking? So not best Christmas present. What was the best one you got in a Christmas stocking? Well, isn't it just like usually clementines and walnuts?
Oh, the beers are actually in here, aren't they?
Yeah, but you can't open one then.
I can open it from the side. So sorry, I got distracted. Remind me the question. Best Christmas stocking.
I asked you all of 5 seconds ago, but what was the best present you've ever had that came in the Christmas stocking?
Oh yeah, I was the same. Clementines and Quality Street. I hate Quality Street. They're just the worst of the chocolates. Miniature Heroes.
Even the big purple one.
Miniature Heroes are the best, but Quality Street. The purple one's good, but that's probably pretty much it.
Yeah.
But then get a stocking and then have an orange and then some Quality Street and then maybe a few other decent gifts to keep me occupied till my parents woke up. This is only last year, by the way.
I can't think of specific examples, but I am a very big kid at heart and I love sweets. So any form of retro sweet, that would win me over. Definitely.
Lego in the stocking and keep you occupied. Yeah, the reason I got distracted there was, what is your favourite Christmas film? I've got the answers, already wrote on there.
It's got to be Die Hard, obviously.
Exactly.
Has to be. Goes without saying, Die Hard is the best Christmas film
Home
ever.
Alone, yeah, Home Alone is very Christmassy, but
It's all right.
it's not the Christmas film.
How many of you actually seen Die Hard, or is this another major cultural reference that's passed you by? You've seen it once, well that's something, I suppose.
So the reason I'm rooting through here is that if you have bought an advent calendar this year, hopefully you've seen already in the little prequel booklet we handed out that we've actually taken a lot of our core beers and we've given them a Christmas revamp. And one of the beers that we've given the revamp from our core range is Goose Willis. So Goose Willis, obviously a pun on Bruce Willis, and the branding is Die Hard.
It's an action hero goose in the white string vest.
So yeah, the Goose Willis revamp. The name of it is called. Yes, it is a Christmas movie, and it's basically Goose Willis in his white vest and lots of Christmas decorations.
Finally putting that argument to rest.
So I should have showed people at home. So that was a sneak preview. If you've got an advent calendar, you'll see the rest of them on the day. That is the 3rd. So what day of Christmas can they open that? 16th.
16, right.
So that was a fun session of puns, coming up with puns for our existing core beers.
Ooh, I've got 3 questions in one here, so we'll do one and then we'll maybe serve some. Best Christmas memory?
Come on, let's get emotional.
No, I remember as a kid, I think my favourite Christmas present I ever got was, I forgot what they called it. It was an orange rally, and it was one of the first mountain bikes, and it had suspension. It was one of the first bikes that had suspension. What on earth did they call it?
I don't know.
I guess you had to be there. But yeah, so I think that was the most memorable present I ever got given.
Most memorable meal.
Most memorable meal, usually the last one I've eaten.
Last Christmas's.
Right, you know what the question should be here? Turkey or goose?
Goose.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be goose. Turkey's so dry.
This is shit.
Slightly more extreme view coming from the right. Turkey is apparently shite.
I do like turkey, but it's only more of a nostalgia thing than everything else. You're used to eating turkey on Christmas Day. So, but actually the best thing, when my granddad was still here, he used to always do turkey and stuff in rolls and after Christmas. So basically, that's one thing we look forward to. He'd basically make these bread buns, turkey stuff in, wrap them in foil, and they'd always go in the oven for half an hour. You can smell it cooking on Boxing Day or whatever, and then everyone would come running for them.
Yeah, but you need the stuffing though, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Turkey is so dry.
Stuffing or a beer. So, should we move on to the next beer?
Right, we're down in these ones then.
Well, you're down yours. So, palate cleanser coming up next. God, he really did.
Nice. So, next up, we have Dreams of Brew York. So, for the first couple of years, or 2-3 years, was it? We only did the one beer.
Yeah.
We did Fairy Tale of Brew York. And then last year, the first time ever, we thought, why don't we expand this a little bit, and we'll do Fairy Tales, Dreams, and Nightmares. We decided that Dreams was going to sit in the middle of the range. It was going to be a nice fruity sour with some sort of Christmas character. So far, it's always had cranberry in. And then we'd have Nightmare at the top of the range as a double version of the previous year's
What
Fairy Tale.
really happened was lots of customers approached us and said, we love Fairy Tale. It's a great beer, but it'd be so much better if you did a big, strong version of it. So I said to Lee, well, let's do 2 Christmas beers this year. And Lee said, no, let's not do 2, let's do 3, and then let's do 4 the year after. I was like, okay then, so yeah, that's...
Well, it's
and
working.
Then we got the Dreams to split the 2 up.
So Dreams of Brew York, came about last year for the first time. We did it as a blueberry and cranberry version because we'd used blueberry in another sour early in the year called Katy Berry, which was a huge hit. So we then did earlier this year probably our highest regarded sour ever, one that we called Kirsch Russell, Escape from Brew York. Mm-hmm. And that had, what's it, like the best part of a ton of cherries in it?
Yeah, it was
like ridiculous amount of cherries in it. It rates a 4.2-ish on Untapped, which makes it currently the second highest pastry sour in the UK. Thank you, Neon Raptor, for stealing our top spot. So yeah, it was ranked number 1, but we've recently lost that. We will reclaim it though. We're coming for you. So Yeah, so last version was made with blueberry and cranberry, and this year we went with cherry and cranberry because the cherry had proved so popular in the Kirsch Russell. And the fear in creating this was that the cranberry was going to get a little bit drowned out by the cherries. And thankfully that hasn't been the case. I think the flavour of the cranberry comes through very clearly. And the finish on this beer has very much so the dryness that you associate with cranberry. And with it being a pastry sour, we're always adding in other things that are dessert-like, so we've got lots of vanilla in here. And then there's that little bit of cinnamon as well to make it seasonal. It's got to have something to call it a Christmas beer.
So I'm glad I chose a white Christmas-themed jumper for this tasting of the stouts and the... Well, yeah, so we gave our Karma Chameleon a Christmas jumper for the box this year. So Christmas Chameleon came out, and I did a rush job print on this last week because we thought we was doing the tasting on Friday. So I didn't have much time to be witty and come up with a decent slogan, so I just went with keep calm and enjoy Christmas. But it works because I think 2 people have already asked me where they can get them. So if you want to buy them, then email Nadia and she'll arrange to have some made.
They're not do that.
And if you've watched lots of these things before, you'll know I always wear band merch, almost always Slipknot. So I have gone Christmas themed, but it had to be a Slipknot Christmas jumper, which I got for last Christmas. So now this is about £35 a wear, because it was a 70 quid jumper. So gradually paying off. You will be seeing this again next year, and the year after, and the year after that.
It's like this year's fairy tale. I'll be
keep on coming back.
You have to keep doing themes.
Just slightly more stained each year.
So yeah, pastry sours is a relatively new thing. When was the first? Was it Omnipollo, I guess, who had the big pastry sours on the scene in the UK?
Yeah, well, I think they took their inspiration from the American market, and then the first kind of one to do it in the UK would be Omnipollo or Omnipollo in conjunction with Buxton, probably.
And then you've got a few other breweries who do something similar, where essentially it's a lactose fruit plus something like vanilla in a sour beer. So it takes something that typically would be sour and might be harder to drink and makes it a little bit more balanced by putting a bit of sweetness in there. So we like them. We like them quite a lot because we don't realise how sour they are until the next day when we've got indigestion. But they are pretty enjoyable compared to different types of sours. And like Lee said, Escape from Brew York worked really well this year, so we wanted to take that and then do something Christmassy with it. So I'm kind of pleased with this. It's quite easy going, really, for the strength it is. Did we mention how strong it was?
We best go over it again just in case. So this is 6.5%. I don't think it tastes 6.5%. I think it's a beer that could get you in trouble. This type of thing may have done before, because they're also incredibly easy drinking. So you've got that nice tartness, sharpness up front, but then it finishes off on kind of smooth vanilla. So it's stupidly easy to drink for something that is as acidic as it actually is.
I remember actually now last year because this beer sold out really quickly, and we had to put a keg to one side for you because you wanted it on your Christmas day. So we like put a little mini keg at the side of the tap room for him to.
I am obsessed with sours. Most of my personal beer collection is sours. Most of them Belgian because they're the masters of the sour beer world. Let's not go into that any further. But yeah, I absolutely love these things.
Which is why he doesn't have any stomach lining left.
Which is why I'm on stomach medication now. So let me be a warning to you all. Consume these things in moderation.
Yeah. Just one sour with 3 stouts, that's enough.
Indeed. Right.
So we'll move on to a few more questions. What was the best present you've got in a Christmas stocking? I think we've had that one. What's the best or worst idea for a Christmas beer you've heard of?
Well, I'm going to group a lot in under worst. Worst for me is any brewery that takes one of their standard beers and whacks in some nutmeg and cinnamon and then approaches someone like Owen to do them a special pump clip. Yeah, I think if you're going to do Christmas, do it properly. Do something that is a truly unique beer. And don't just pile loads of nutmeg and cinnamon and cloves in it, thinking that's what Christmas is. So any of those. So I'm basically just slating every single traditional cask brewer in the country. But yeah, I won't go anywhere near those ones personally.
Yeah, we the advent calendar. I'll keep pushing it every opportunity I get. But yeah, the advent calendar this year wasn't about putting 12 Christmas beers out there to the public and letting you try 12 different Christmas themed beers. It was about the 4 Christmas beers we're going to drink today, and then we wanted to keep the Christmas theme going. You don't get an advent calendar from Cadbury's and you think, oh God, I've got a dairy milk. That's what you expect, and then you get a good one on Christmas Eve. So
What's wrong with dairy milk?
well, nothing's wrong with it, but that's their core, effectively their core, isn't it? So we wanted the advent calendar to be focused on a wide sample of our core beer with the Christmas specials to be the highlight. But we didn't want to just put core beer in. We wanted to do something with it, which is why we did the Christmas twist. So each beer has the Christmas label and a pun and a rebrand in the mix for it, which was an absolute nightmare for the brewers because we had to basically take every single beer and then relabel it, which when our production schedule is as busy as it is, wasn't their favourite job, I can imagine.
Well, we're not going to go through every single one, but my favourite rename, I think, is, so this beer I'm concealing back here as my backup beer, it's called Haze of Thunder. So we call
Well, put it to the audience. What would you call a beer called Haze of Thunder
if you were trying to go Christmas themed, what would you call it?
Owen, don't cheat.
12 days of
12 Days of Thunder, that's
Pretty
good.
good.
Slays of Thunder, yes. So it's called Slays of Thunder. Oh, come on, it's better than that.
My
Right, okay. Tumbleweed.
my favourite was mine, which was our core APAs called Lupuli. So what do you do a Christmas themed beer for that? Obviously Lupuli and the Witch in the Wardrobe.
Oh,
Tumbleweed.
Yeah.
I thought it was good anyway.
They're so lame, but my favourite's mine.
Yeah, but sometimes something can be so shit it's good.
Big turkey.
Big Turkey, yeah. So Big Eagles are West Coast IPA. So Nadia came up with Big Turkey. Yeah, I think we're all thinking these are brilliant, and then everyone at home is just like,
I think what we
dad
can
jokes in a cracker.
I think what we can conclude from that is we had 3 turkeys. Right, okay. Well, let's hope those of you that have bought this box are slightly more amused when you get the. So, did you do your favourite winter beer? In fact, we didn't do favourite. We only did worst, didn't we?
The favourite. It's not really my favourite, but it's the only one I can think of that comes out every year, and that's the Bradfield Blue or whatever it's called.
Oh, well, they put blueberries in it and turn it pink. That thing sells phenomenally well, though.
So it's the Bradfield Brewery. It's their blonde ale that they put blueberries in. Yeah, and I just remember up at the Bluebell, John bought about.
Yeah, certainly
20
overordered. I think he
Firkins
was
or
still
something,
serving it in February.
Who does a regular Christmas beer? Anyone in the audience got any favourites? Christmas beers. But Christmas Kitty, yeah. Brass Castle do that now, don't they? Christmas Kitty each year.
Which is one where they just put cinnamon and nutmeg. Sorry, Phil, Sam, Kev. Oops.
Hoppy Christmas.
Oh yeah, they did 2, didn't they? Hoppy Christmas, and what was they did another one as
Yeah,
well.
they did 2. And the Hoppy Christmas was okay, but I used to like the other one that I can't even think of the name of.
Sam Smith Winter Warmer.
Sam Smith Winter Warm there. What's that, just another jacket? Right. Okay. What is the beer that you dream of making or brewing? Appropriate that we should be doing that alongside this one. The beer that you dream of making or brewing?
Well, one of the things that we did recently was partly inspired by a beer that I love, and I think you do as well. So Sierra Nevada, big inspiration for us as a brewery. They're a brewery in America who do your hoppy West Coast style bitter beers. They do a beer called Torpedo, which is their double IPA, which is like a really strong knockout juice. That's effectively what I call it.
With a good kind of caramelly character to it as
Yeah.
well.
So for a pale beer, it's got quite a lot of like golden colours come through. Really interesting beer. So we did a beer called Imperial Eagle recently, and we brewed it at the current site. So at Warmgate, we brewed it on our smaller kit, and we brewed it in a very small brew length, and we ended up with maybe like 100 cases. So if you're a subscriber and you're watching, you're going to get it in this month's subs box, which we'll be tasting next week. And that's pretty much it. It didn't go anywhere. There was that few of them, but it was a great beer. By the way, I've got us both a case in my office.
Excellent.
So it's a really good beer.
So if you want to see Wayne and I in an embarrassing state, watch next Friday when we will be consuming one double IPA at 9%, followed by another double IPA at 9%.
Ignore him, Sal. He's still in Porkies. We are drinking those beers, but we won't be that drunk.
Yeah, we promised we won't have a can each. We're definitely having a can each. I think we might have done, yes. Thank you. Is there a fruit or fruits that you would like to brew with that you haven't yet? Banana or tomato is the two suggestions. Okay. But banana or tomato is the two suggestions. So tomato,
Growing, by the way.
tomato of course being a fruit.
Obviously,
So,
learned
yeah.
nothing in the years of working.
Banana, well, if we just cover off those two, banana is a flavour associated in beer with a particular type of yeast. So if you're not attempting to make Belgian style beers, or in particular wheat beers, then banana in a beer is considered to be an off flavour. It means you've stressed the hell out of your yeast and it's done something weird. So banana, unless that's the thing you're particularly trying to get into a beer, can be quite weird. I mean, there is that famous banana bread beer, I think, that you get in all the
Class beer,
supermarkets. And that's great. That works. For me, banana is not necessarily an ingredient I would want to work with. And tomatoes...
Unless you're making a Banoffee milk stout.
Oh yeah, apart from that. And tomatoes, if we were to do that, we wouldn't be the first to the party with that. There is a beer called pizza beer, where you can get a beer with tomato and basil in it, which I've not actually had the pleasure or potential displeasure of. But yeah, that's already out there.
One of the fruits that I really like, which is difficult to work with beer, is strawberry. So strawberry, the fructose is highly fermentable. So when you brew the beer, the yeast converts the sugar in the strawberries into alcohol. But that's where most of the flavour is in a strawberry, is in that sugar. So once it's gone, you're left with like a pink drink that doesn't really taste of much. So there are ways around that nowadays, and there's a brewery up in Edinburgh called. Vault City. Yeah, I was about to say Pilot. There is a brewery called Pilot, but yeah, Vault City, who did a strawberry. They did a glitter bomb strawberry.
Yeah, it was really nice.
And yeah, they've brewed some really good strawberry-based beers. And I was chatting to the brewers about how they did that, and I think it's something we might try next year. But we wanted to do a white chocolate and strawberry cheesecake.
No, it was going to be white chocolate and raspberry.
Was it raspberry?
Yeah.
Strawberry then.
Strawberry. Right, fine. Well, we'll see if that makes it on the schedule for next year. Fruits. There were a couple of things that didn't make it onto this year's schedule that were supposed to. So we want to do some fruit versions of a couple of our core beers. So we think Lupulime, which is our gluten-free APA, would really suit grapefruit. I think if we introduce some like pithiness, some grapefruit into that would work really well. And the other one was, once again, advertising Haze of Thunder, just back here. We're thinking some pineapple in that could go pretty well. Yeah.
So that could be pretty interesting. I've got another one here. A question here about Yorkie puddings with Christmas dinner, yes or no?
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
We're from Yorkshire, so it's
Got a no down here.
it's got
Do you
to
know,
be, yeah.
this is genuinely a thing me and my wife fight over. Because for me, Yorkshire puddings, it's, well, are we having gravy? Yeah, well, we're having Yorkshire puddings.
Yeah.
Given.
Yeah.
But for her, Yorkshire puddings are with beef. We don't have it if we're having chicken. We don't have it with a Christmas dinner. But they're amazing. Why would you not use every opportunity possible to have one?
Yeah, why would you limit yourself?
Anything. Yeah. Chicken gravy, Yorkshire pudding.
Obviously, yeah,
Just have it as a starter. 'Cause I was going to say, I used to have Yorkshire pudding as a starter, Yorkshire pudding with main, and then Yorkshire pudding as a dessert. It was like my family
No,
was so
no, we
Yorkshire
did that.
You basically filled you up on the
Yeah, you'd have
Starter at the start.
no, you'd have Yorkshire puddings and just your
On
gravy
a
as a
plate,
starter. Then you'd have your main meal with your Yorkshire
Yorkshire
pudding, and then you'd have Yorkshire pudding with sugar and milk to finish off.
Or like some sort of syrupy stuff at the end, or jam or whatever. Yeah, it's a Yorkshire thing. It's also it's just flour, milk, and
It's pancakes.
And that's why it's a Yorkshire thing, because
Yeah,
it's tight
cheap.
as. Nice. You got any more?
I've got another one. Yeah, it's 8 p.m. on Christmas Day, and you're a bit peckish. Build your ideal leftover sandwich.
8 p.m. on Christmas Day, I'm asleep because I've eaten too much. What am I building your ideal leftover sandwich?
With goose.
Yeah, goose and pigs and blankets.
Oh, pigs in blankets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pig. Or Yorkshire pudding as the bread.
Now you're talking. Might be able to slip a bit of gravy in there as well.
Cold collie cheese.
Oh, collie cheese.
Cold collie cheese.
Cold cauliflower cheese.
Yeah.
Bit
Cold
stinky.
cauliflower
Yeah.
cheese.
It's
Ah,
like
damn.
it's
Mm.
bread.
Oh, it's like instead of butter,
Yeah.
or as well as.
Yeah, that's.
This is my question, by the way.
Aye. Yeah, that's why you're so engaged with it. It's your question. Okay.
Normally on Christmas Day we tend to get the treat ourselves, go to Waitrose and get the little party food, and they have these belly pork little squares, and they've got like treacle or something on them. They're so sickly but so nice. They're just once you've had one, you just got to keep going on them.
Right, well, here's one. A favourite party food. Little snacks like that. I'll tell you what mine is straight off the bat. You get these little jalapenos that have got soft cheese in, and they're
cream
breaded.
cheese jalapenos.
Oh,
Breaded.
so
They're well
good.
good. Well, we've got Sal's brought us some meze food in afterwards, because usually by the time we finish this, it's around 9 p.m. and the and Yuzu stops serving food at 9 p.m. So we've had a few beers and we get a bit hungry, and then the food stops. So Sal's saving the day, and she's brought us some like I don't know what different snacks, but we've got some like picking food, packed lunch. Okay, so that's the questions, I think. So we need to get on to the next beer.
I gave you 3.
No, we've done Yorkshire puddings. We've done that one.
We did the fruit one.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, sorry, yeah.
So, have we got any more questions in the audience while we wait for the next beers to come along?
Just shout them out.
Just shout them out and I'll repeat them on camera. Anything, doesn't have to be beer related.
What do you want for Christmas this year?
A day off.
Merry Christmas. Die Hard.
Die Hard, obviously.
Yeah, what do you want for Christmas this year?
What do I want for Christmas this year? Bloody hell.
You got a hot tub last year. He bought it for himself.
That wasn't for Christmas. Now, me and my wife are not buying presents for each other this Christmas, or we're limiting our budget because I can't believe I'm about to announce this on camera, but you won't believe this, but I actually like going to see musicals. And we're going to see Moulin Rouge in the West End in January. So that's our Christmas budget gone.
God, was that expensive?
150 quid a ticket.
Jesus.
So yes, it's expensive.
Yeah, likewise. For me, I'd rather than have Christmas presents, I'd rather have a break. So we're going to Leaf near Edinburgh for Christmas Eve through till the 27th. So just basically let someone else look after us for Christmas, cook the food and do everything. It's going to be awesome.
How's the new site working out? How does old work?
So we've just been asked how the new site is working out. If you'd asked us about 3 months ago, I'd have said I'm probably heading for being bald fairly soon. Now I think things have started to settle down. We were perhaps a little bit naive in thinking that we could do everything completely new and expect it to work straight away. So we've got complete new brew house. In fact, we've got 2 brew houses. All the packaging equipment was new with the exception of the canning line. New steam installation, new cooling, new everything. Consequently, it took several more months than we thought it was going to get it running. And then even once we had it running, there's things we've had to go back and keep tweaking and keep tweaking and keep tweaking. And we still haven't mastered it. There's still more we need to do. But we are making beer, we are packaging beer. It's working, and I think the morale of the team is improving. It's been difficult for them through this transitional period. But I think we're in a good place now, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, so we myself and Lee started the project back in
April.
January, February initially, pre-COVID. COVID hit, and there's no chance we're going to be able to expand. And then everyone started buying beer off us at home, which was amazing. So everyone watching probably, and you guys supported us, bought us loads of beer in cans off us. And we realised that actually expansion was going to be an option. So we pushed ahead, and then in April, May time, we found the site, and then it was a lot of work before we even got the lease. We got the lease in September, and then we didn't even start production until March. So it was 6 months getting the kit in, getting everything running, and then probably 3 months of trying to get lots and lots of orders fulfilled before things started settling down. And then even now, it took another 3 months after that to then really embed in the equipment. So it was challenging, but I think we're in a really good position now. And like Lee said, there's we've got a great team who work for us, who have been helping us throughout the way. And yeah, it's nice to be getting closer to Christmas where we can actually take some time with the team and sorry, a bit of lighting issue.
So I just pointed out to Nadia that light was about to fall over. So, and now it's almost definitely going to fall over. I maybe shouldn't have mentioned anything.
You can just hold it in place for like the next 10 minutes. But yeah, it hasn't been. It's taken us a while to get there, but the new site's been great for increasing production. But it's taken us a long time to settle in. But I think we're there now. I think there's a few little bits and tweaks we can make, but we're pleased with how things are going there.
Well, put it this way, we're in talks to get more vessels, so it can't be going too badly.
Yeah, so on to the next beer then. So barrel-aged...
No, you're jumping one.
Nightmare of Brew York. So this is just the 9.8% standard version. So Nightmare of Brew York, first time we brewed it was last year, and last year's was the barrel-aged walnut one Lee mentioned. So this year we took last year's Fairy Tale and then brewed that and amped it up. So doubled the ABV. So 9.8% stout. So it's a double Fairy Tale. This year, it's a bit of a mouthful. So it's peanut, pecan, maple, vanilla with a hint of cinnamon. So if you do have a nut allergy, don't drink this beer. It doesn't actually contain real nuts. But there's always a risk with a nut flavour. So it's produced in a factory where it does contain nuts. So hopefully if you do have a nut allergy, you're not drinking it.
I was just making sure we did put the cover your own arse statement on that says may contain nuts. It is there. That's okay.
So we learned from experience over the first couple of years of making Fairy Tale Brew York. If you ever want to include nuts in a beer, it's just really difficult to get the flavour out of the nut. So we did a few different variants, and pistachio was one, which was an absolute nightmare.
Well, that was my great idea that if we get it as a paste,
pistachio
higher
paste.
surface area, it'll take up the flavour. No, it just makes a plug that blocks all your pipe work.
And that's when you drink it as well.
Oh, you only went there.
But no, pistachio was an absolute pain. We did a few other nuts, and it didn't work very well. So we learned the trick that a lot of really good breweries out there had been using for a while, which was basically nut flavouring. So we never, before we did they use nut flavours. I don't think we'd ever use the flavouring in our beer. It was always trying to use the natural ingredients in the different formats that they come in. But we tried a beer called...
You're going to say Belching Beaver's peanut?
Well, that was one of them. Belching Beaver in America do a peanut beer, but also the Buxton...
Noah?
Yeah. What's the Buxton one? Buxton one we call it?
Oh, no, the Yellow Belly.
Yellow Belly. And Yellow Belly Sunday, which were two absolutely amazing beers. And if you look on the ingredients list, they don't disclose anything they really use. And then the more we dug into it, no one was admitting at the time that they basically use nut flavouring in beer. The reason that they use nut flavouring is it hits you on the nose. So all that what you think you're tasting is actually more of the aroma, and that's where you're getting most of the flavour coming from. So yeah, it was like the dirty secret of the brewing industry that people were using flavourings to get the nut aroma, which really helped you with the taste. And yeah, we used it in one of our beers, and it was really good. We were really pleased with it, and before we knew it, a lot of other breweries were being open about the fact that they were using the flavouring in it. So.
And like you were saying, it is something that is seriously allergenic. So do you want to be playing with that kind of stuff in your brewery? And there's a lot of regulation around it. There's our standard cleaning practices would not be enough. There's another layer of stuff that you have to do if you're dealing with allergens. So it's just simpler to not work with them. And like Wayne was saying with Yellow Belly there and Belching Beaver's Peanut Butter Stout, the expectation of nut in a beer now has been set by those beers. So we expect peanut in a beer to taste like that. We expect pecan in a beer to taste like what you were getting Noah, for example, that kind of thing. So if we then rock up to market with a beer where we used actual nuts, and you can barely taste it because we used actual nuts, then it's not going to compete and it's not going to sell. So for those reasons, that's why we go with the flavourings.
This is the first time I've actually tried Nightmare this year. Yeah, I'm really impressed. It's really good. It's
smooth, isn't it?
Yeah.
For 9.8.
Oh dear. Just for 9.8.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really impressed with it. It's really nice. I like strong dark beers. I like them with the nut aroma that comes through. I'm not sure which nut I'm getting more of, but I think pecan's probably more than peanut.
Mm.
And then a bit of maple on the back of the mouth afterwards. The vanilla comes like mellows it down a bit, but I don't taste much cinnamon. But I probably will later.
No, I'd agree with you on that one. Usually you get the cinnamon in the aftertaste, and I'm not particularly getting it in the aftertaste. There's a certain spicy warmth at the end generally, which, yeah, it's not there with this one. And the brewing team have been cursing us this year for our use of cinnamon. So the way in which we introduce cinnamon is we make a cinnamon tea. So we just buy kilos and kilos of cinnamon powder, and then we take water that's 90 degrees, so it's sterile, and we mix that with the cinnamon, and then we separate the two, and we put the liquid as a kind of cinnamon tea into the beer. And I think we've used about 6 kilos of it in the last month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's basically a room full of jugs full of cinnamon. So the team have not been impressed.
Have you got them to do a cinnamon challenge where you do a spoonful of cinnamon? I bet they've been doing it without.
Do you remember those little firecracker balls you used to get? The red ones that were about yay big, and they were almost pure cinnamon.
Big red chewing gum in America. I always remember that. That's a cinnamon chewing gum. Yeah. Fireballs, yeah.
Fireballs, yeah. Those. I used to love them. Yeah. Used to burn your mouth off. You got money for value for money with those.
Those gobstoppers as a kid, those giant gobstoppers that took all the layers of skin off your tongue while you were...
Are the ones where you had jaw ache because you having to open your mouth so far to try and even fit them in?
No, you don't chew them, you just lick them.
Well, that's what I was going wrong then.
Break your teeth. Have we got any more questions yet? Questions are dying down now that everyone's having the 10% beer. We can't read them either.
Although amazingly, the questions have not dropped into the gutter yet.
Yeah, the answers haven't either.
Fifth Christmas, geez, good beer. Fifth Christmas beer for next year, perhaps a nice tipper. Oh yeah, because what you want after the 9.8% is the tipper, isn't it? Triple IPA for anyone who doesn't know.
I do think a pale to balance out the dark and sours would be quite good though.
That's a name suggestion.
I do like smells of Brew York though. So is that like a Nirvana sort of thing? Like it smells like Teen Spirit?
Yeah,
Smells like,
Yeah,
that's
got
pretty cool.
one. Where do you think the next tap room is, and why is it Edinburgh?
Well, we both love Edinburgh, so that is a quality suggestion.
There's I'd love us to have a bar in Edinburgh, but Edinburgh's they've got so many good breweries in Edinburgh now that would be. It's like going to Bermondsey in London and opening a tap room there when there's so many good breweries already there. You wouldn't.
Are you saying we wouldn't do that?
He only asks that because that's where he lives.
No.
Doesn't want to travel anymore. Yeah, you guys are one of the best in the UK.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, no, we love Edinburgh and we'd love to open a bar there, but yeah, we would have to wait.
We are reviewing options. The way that 2021 has been for bars, it's not felt like the right time to leap right in and open up another one. It's been difficult. So I think we'll probably reassess our options for next year.
So our next one that we've got we're focusing on at the moment is actually our new production site in Osbaldwick. So we're looking at trying to open an occasional tap room there where maybe on a Friday or Saturday you can come up and have a drink and then see what we're doing, barrel-aged beers and stuff like that. It's just difficult when you've got such a, well, not being big-headed, but an awesome tap room, I think, like we have here, tap room and beer hall. How do you get people, wanting to leave the city centre and go into not the middle of nowhere, but head out of York to go see a tap room when there's something like this in the city centre? There's a few ways to do that, and we'll look at a few of them. But even if it's just a place for us and the brewers to have a pint after work in Osbaldwick, well, we might do that.
I mean, what Wayne's really meaning is he lives a crawlable distance away. So I think he just wants a bar on his doorstep, and he lives in a village where it's like a chain pub. You'd never drink in, would you?
There's a nice pub in the village, but they're not free of ties. They can't buy the type of beer that I tend to drink. And then the next closest pub from where I live to town is literally at Warmgate Bar, where you've got the Rook and Gaskell, Rose and Crown, and Wagon and Horses. So great pubs, but it's a 30-minute walk till you get to them. So yeah, it's
Do you good, man?
I know.
Right. Next question we've got is, we've had New England IPAs, we've had sours. What is the next style? So, I mean, at the minute, the thing that seems to be kicking off a little bit is the cold IPA. So we seem to keep having, because New England's exploded in the way that they did, the big hazy, juicy style, people have then tried to do, well, what's the next step in IPA? And then they did the Brute IPA, which was they used an enzyme to make the beer finish really dry. But then it was imbalanced, so that was the Brute IPAs. So you had this thing where you've got this big punchy fruit character up front with this then incredibly unappealing dryness at the end. So for a minute, people really liked that, and almost all breweries, including ourselves, made one, and then we all moved on.
Yeah.
So Brute IPA is pretty much dead as a style as far as we're concerned now. You then had the Mountain IPA, which
Green
is,
Mountain.
well, we've got East Coast, we've got West Coast, so what if we do the middle ground of the two styles, and we'll call it the Mountain one, because that's in the middle.
So whenever any hype breweries do a West Coast IPA, that's pretty much it.
Well, that's it, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they basically brew a bitter but cloudy, murky beer, which
It's,
was the intention.
Well, we're not going to name names here, although you've come very close there. But it does infuriate me when I see people's West Coast IPAs and they're hazy.
Yeah,
West Coast IPAs, traditional West Coast IPAs, are not hazy, and they're not soft in bitterness. They're supposed to, if anything, have maybe a slight hop haze. They're certainly not supposed to look like what you're drinking there.
mean,
And they're not
that?
supposed to be super like low on bitterness, easy drinking. They're supposed to challenge the palate. It's the beauty of the bitterness that makes you go back. So yeah, you can tell I get quite annoyed by those particular ones. Yeah, but I mean, it's my favourite style of beer, the West Coast IPA. So it really does annoy me when people do it wrong or they do something else and claim that what they're doing is the West Coast IPA.
But then where you were leading to there was
The cold IPA. Yeah, and then the next thing that's come about is the cold IPA, which for me seems like a marketing ploy. Everybody else would know it as a India Pale Lager. It's basically a cold fermented beer, a lager that has been dry hopped. So they're saying that's going to be the next thing. And then they're also saying that in the US they had the big IPA movement, and then it went big on wheat beers. So they're saying, well, in the UK, are we going to go big on wheat beers now? Not from what I can see. I just don't see the appetite in the UK for wheat beers that they have across in the US. And I don't mind a wheat beer, but for me, it's a 1 or a 2 pint thing. They're just so filling. I just can't session those kind of beers. But that's
Unlike a
possibly just me.
9.8% stout.
I can session them all day. Yeah. So we've talked about what everybody else thinks is going to be the next big thing. I think the thing that's really kind of coming into its own in the UK now is the craft lager movement. I think we are producing excellent lagers in this country now, including our own Golden Eagle, moving to the new site. We've got reverse osmosis. We've been able to strip all the mineral content out of the water. And we now do a very excellent lager. I will be honest and say lagers we've done in years prior to this one, I would not be proud of. The one we actually have out there now, I am very proud of. So yeah, lagers are still the big thing. I still think there's a way to go with the sours though. I wouldn't exactly call them mainstream yet in the UK. I think you're seeing a lot more kind of cider drinkers and so forth move across into drinking. So, yeah, they're absolutely gateway beers, yeah. What punk once was for craft beer, these sours are now for craft beer, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we were quite surprised. We actually sell a few beers into supermarkets. So we have Juice Forsyth is in Morrison's, and then we expanded that range in Morrison's recently, and they took Goose Willis, which we were really pleased with because for sour beers just don't sell anywhere near as well as other styles. So it's nice to have it in a supermarket where it makes it really accessible, and it's a beer that we love. We brewed it 3 years ago, was it? No, maybe more than that, maybe 4 years ago. For Brewdog's Collab Fest quite a while back.
2017.
And then we loved it so much that we kept it and we brought it back as a core beer. And it's been great for us to have that always available. And it was nice to have a supermarket back a sour. It doesn't sell that well, to be fair. not Juice Forsyth just sells so well that anything.
Yeah, it doesn't because not everybody's into sours, but they do tell us it outsells every other sour that they have.
I don't think they have any other sours, but no, they do. But it sells pretty well. But it's just nice to have that. And then when the market expands and people taste them, hopefully they'll go back and try other sour beers. But we set ourselves a challenge this year where we want to go away and we don't want to do what everyone else is doing or look at, which is what we typically do. We look at what's happening in America because they're a few years ahead of where the English beer scene is, and we try and replicate what's happened. We want to look at what we think is going to be really good and back ourselves, and then start brewing that style and see if people will buy into it. It's very difficult and it's very scary to try and do something like that because there's certain styles of beer that we brew that we love that we just know will not sell because people in the UK just aren't ready for that. One of them tends to be hoppy dark beers. They just don't sell.
I love brown ales. I love
so
India stouts, those kind of things. But yeah, you're right, they don't sell great. But like Wayne's saying there, we've thrown a challenge out to ourselves and to our wider team to, for once, not follow our American cousins, to actually try and initiate something and see if we can make other people follow. And I think in doing that, what we have to do is not be afraid to fail. There will be things that are not going to work, and okay, they don't work. We move on, we do the next one. But hopefully, in doing so, we will come across something where it is truly Brew York, and it will inspire others to follow where we have trod.
So, have we got a few more questions? Because the last beer that we're going to taste is that rare that we. How many cans have we got? 4 cans to go around. 5 cans. Well.
And just to make. So yeah, you guys are going to have to do some sharing, but just for you guys, for the first time ever, Wayne and I will share a can ourselves rather than having one each. How did the idea for Brew York come about? Wow. Well, that's about half an hour covered.
Well, go back quite a while. I was drinking. I was pretty much drinking Sierra Nevada and punk in most places I went to, and I wanted to try and brew something similar at home. Not because I wasn't homebrewing or anything at the time, but I bought some kits, and you get them in a tin, and they're like syrup, and you basically melt.
You get from boots, like John Bull's
heat
stuff
the
from
syrup
Boots,
down,
yeah.
add water, heat the syrup down, basically dilute it, and then you ferment it, and it usually tastes horrible, but you've made alcohol, and you're like, ooh, wow, that's impressive. And then I started doing some research, and I found a technique called brew in a bag, where you basically do all grain brewing, where you take extract the sugar from the grain instead of getting it from a tin, and you pretty much replicate what we do on a big scale now, but in one container at home. So it's quite easy to do. It's not easy to do, but it's less equipment you need, and it's relatively accessible.
It's a method that was conceived across in Australia.
Yeah, Australia
so
was pretty big at it.
It's kind of like one pot cooking. You start out with one thing, and you just keep reusing that thing to do the different steps of the process.
And that one pot you need, I ordered from some website, and they sent me 2 of them. And I was waiting for them to contact me to return it. And while I was waiting for them to contact me, I took my first home brews to a friend's barbecue and bumped into Lee, who I'd met maybe, 3 months earlier at the same friend's stag do, where we just drank loads of lager in Germany and talked about how we hated lager and wanted to go back to the UK and drink English beer. But yeah, I took the beer to this barbecue, and he tasted it. He's like, "Did you make that?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just homebrew using this style." He's like, "I used to do the syrup stuff, and I'd like to try that." So I was like, "Well, I've got a spare vessel here." So yeah, Lee took it on, and Lee, being super competitive, then went and bought like every bit of homebrew equipment he could find, and converted his whole shed to like a mini brewery. And then we used to brew together. We started brewing, and then talked about how one day it'd be great if we could convert it into actually a full-time job.
It was cool. We did get super competitive because we had little breweries in our back garden, and yours like combined with a bar, and which is called Swain's. You still have it now, because Sally sat in our audience over here is the S, and it's Swain.
I wanted more letters.
So you had the bar where you served your beer, and then I had my little brewery in my back garden, and then I built a little bar in my back garden.
Effing lodge in his garden, didn't build a mine was a bin shed that I converted into a bar, which is pretty cool. And he's like, "Well,"
so I built a log cabin, and I put a bar in that. I told you I'm competitive. So we did that, and then roll on maybe a year after that. In fact, I've just been at a wedding up in Scotland, and it did remind me of a particular thing.
I brewed the first ever beers we did was the wedding he was at was for our friend's dad, who was getting remarried.
Yeah.
And for our friend's wedding, we both brewed 2 beers each for their wedding. So we weren't obviously brewing professionally then. So we both did a dark and a pale beer, and then we were keg brew. We were doing the type of brewing I was mentioned earlier, but we were using mini kegs. So there was 4 kegs on at the wedding. So anyone who attended our friend's wedding tasted the first ever Brew York beers. They just didn't know it then.
Yeah. And the feedback we got from that was phenomenal. And we'd entered a few competitions. In these competitions, which we were doing very well in, our beer had been described as being of a commercial standard. So then, again, we moved the clock on a little bit, and then when the company he was working for got bought out by another engineering company. So although they hadn't asked him to leave, he had the opportunity to leave if he wanted to.
Yeah, my boss at the time was being told he wasn't going to get the job, and they wanted me to stay on, and because he wasn't going to move on, he was like, "Well, if you want to go, then let me know, and I'll put you in the front of the queue for the redundancy payout." I was like, "Put me in the queue." I was like, "If you're going to get one chance to try."
Yeah, so. And then I had a similar opportunity. I worked in the city here for an insurers, and they bought another company. So then they were trying to drop a few people. So I said, "Yeah, hands up, I want to go." Because, when were we ever going to get that opportunity at the same time? And there's a pub just up the road here called the Fossgate Social. And Wayne and I were sat in the back, along with Sally, and we just had a conversation with her. Are you prepared to go to your grave without at least trying this? And we decided, well, we'd rather do it, and if it fails, so what? We'll have some regrets, whatever, but at least we tried. So that really, up the road at Fossgate Social, that's where Brew York was conceived. That was where we said, we are going to do this. And we've not really looked back, and we've always had this philosophy. So it's very Wayne's World. If we build it, they will come. It's Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams, isn't it?
It's my world, but yeah, it's Field of Dreams.
It's Field of Dreams, but then it gets quoted in Wayne's World. It's Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner.
Imagine you didn't know that, and you just thought it was a Wayne's World quote.
So we've always just gone about building first of all, a brewery that made beers that we wanted to drink, and then a venue in which we wanted to drink. Because someone else hadn't created in New York, and we're like, well, if they're not doing it, we're going to do it.
And we set
And that's
out.
the way we've always approached things. We make what we want to drink, we make spaces in which we want to drink. That is it.
So there was a few free elements to it initially, and it doesn't matter how good your beer is if no one drinks it. So how do you make sure that people drink it? Because back then it was nowhere near as competitive.
I can feel
as
a
now.
plug coming up again.
I know, exactly. Exactly. I'm building up to it. But yeah, we decided there was three big elements. One was the tap room. So we wanted a city centre tap room in York where people could get to it. And we thought no one would come here, genuinely thought that no one would come to this tap room because we're on a small industrial estate just off Wormgate.
Literally, even the day before, we're here till the small hours of the morning, just doing finishing touches to the tap room. Alex, do you reckon anyone's going to turn up then?
And then it's a really tough market. So if no one picks your beer up, as in they literally pick it up off the shelf, or they buy it when they go into a pub because it doesn't stand out. So we wanted to make sure that the branding really stood out. So that's where the plug comes, because I met with Owen, at least, I don't know, 12 months, if not longer, before we even launched Brew York, to start talking about the concept. And when we look back now, and I have them on my phone, they're brilliant. The original concept drawings we had, I think, 4 or 5 different concepts, and we came up with the one we use now. And the one we use now is an iteration, because the first one looked like penguins and sheep or something. It was brilliant.
No, I mean, the logo, it's great to see how that evolved through the process, because we did share some of the first ones with people, and we're like, why have you got penguins on your logo?
But
They're like, they're not penguins.
But there was one brewery in particular back at the time when we set up who were doing amazing things with their branding that we really liked, and that was Magic Rock. And we were like, well, we're going to have to compete with these guys, so we need people to be able to pick our beer up. And we wanted it to not look traditional. We didn't want to sit alongside other, because York's a massively traditional city, and we were focused on cask beer when we started. So how do we make people buy our cask beer over someone else's? So it was a big thing for us to look like a modern craft brewery, but be on the traditional cask wickets. So there was a lot of time and effort went into that, and we think we got it right. And the brand's evolved a lot since then, but it still feels Brew York. And I don't think there's many branding agencies as busy as Owen is, because there's not many breweries bring out as many beers as we do.
Yeah, and I think over time we've honed a fairly unique style. Is that one way of putting it? Yeah. So no, we started off with this almost American kind of totem style, would you say? Character-wise and storytelling. And then over time, we've drifted into this puntastic world with ridiculous branding. And we keep telling, like Wayne said earlier, it's not just he or I that come up with the names and stuff. We throw it out to everyone. But the problem is, once you've done like this pun celebrity, that pun celebrity, all the suggestions that come in now are, well, you should do Katy Perry, or what about Simon Lemon, or what about Dame Judy Quench? Jeez, this beer's good. And Matthew McConaughey's.
Yeah. It was those elements. It was the amazing place venue to drink it in, the great brands to make people pick it up. But it doesn't matter, again, how good those things are. If you're brewing shit beer, no one's going to buy it again. So yeah, it was all built on brewing good beer. So we hope we got the 3 elements right, and we're growing still now. So that's reassuring to us. But we're growing. We're much bigger than we ever anticipated we'd ever be after 5 years. It's a bit crazy when we look back now.
Yeah, if you'd have told either Wayne and I 5.5 years ago when we started all of this that we have 2 breweries and 4 bars and be producing, what we're going to do this year? Almost 1 million litres of beer this year.
And have your own chameleon Christmas jumper.
But it's not Slipknot though, is it? So I did jokingly say at the start of that question, that's probably half an hour filled. I think we've not done bad. I think we had a good go.
So if money were no object, what would you like to try and include in a beer? Well, that's not for Lee, because he does sometimes brew beers as if money was no object. What was the most expensive one you did recently?
Jackie Flan. And then Jackie Flan Maple Edition.
So Jackie Flan was blueberries. Blueberries, one of the most expensive ingredients. I don't know why it's so expensive, but...
Well, it was blueberries and raspberries and blackberries, and I ordered all these ingredients somewhat ignorant to the fact that this year has not been a good harvest for berry fruits. And obviously with Brexit, we've lost the fruit pickers, and then the HGV drivers, and all these different things have culminated in fruit prices going through the roof. And I mean like 500% up on what they used to be. So I didn't really realise that when I ordered the ingredients for this beer. And we ended up with something that had £8,000 worth of fruit in it. And it meant that if you were to attempt to buy a pint of that across our bar here, it would cost you £10. So it ended up, yeah, pretty pricey beer. It was a good beer though.
Yeah, it's really nice. The maple version as well, I really like. I like the maple that comes through at the back of the throat. But yeah, sometimes money is no object until I remind Lee that we've got to get people to buy this beer and we need to make money on it.
And they do generally sell.
But yeah, he hasn't started doing a truffle beer yet or anything like that.
Do you know why that is?
Truffle shuffle. We thought we'd get sued by Warner
Because
again.
I don't like mushrooms and I don't like truffles. And I think they're quite similar. So what are your all-time favourite beers? Here's a subject we could probably ramble on about as well.
Yeah, keep it
Succinct.
succinct.
All right, I'll give you two straight off the bat. Jaipur, Roosters Yankee.
Yeah, Jaipur is pretty much my go-to cask beer because it's a beer that I've drank for so long that I know I enjoy, and if I see it on, I tend to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be succinct, but I'm doing it anyway. I think if there's a bar that you can walk in and you break with the modern mantra of I'm just going to have the new thing, and you order something instantly because you see it, and for me and for Wayne, Jaipur is that type of beer, then that's got to be an amazing beer. So wherever I see Jaipur on the bar, I'm not even looking at anything else. I'm like, I'm having Jaipur. That's it.
And for me, it's not necessarily Roosters Yankee, it's Roosters cask beer in general. I know what I'm getting, it's really enjoyable, usually 3.6 or 3.8%. It is what it is. And Tom and all who own Roosters are just really, really nice guys. They're so down to earth, they're really helpful. We've known them since before we started Brew York, and they took over Roosters about probably 4 or 5 years before we started our brewery. And they're just really good people to know. They're really, love having a beer with them when we get to festivals, but just know that the quality that they keep their beer in and that the standards they get from their team are great. So, yeah, two really good beers.
Yeah, I think in the pandemic, the thing I missed the most was cask beer, because you can't really replicate that kind of experience at home. And then to get to, it's not my local, but it's like Wayne and Sally have, like the Rook and Gaskell and so far. There's a pub I have on my route home that I would go in, and they always have Yankee on. So I would always go in there and have Yankee. So as soon as the pandemic was over, me and Polly went there, and you're like, yeah, we'll just stop for one, or two, or three, and then you just have to keep going back. It's such a good beer.
There's a couple of beers like that I always forget about, but when you have them, you remember how good they are, and you take them for granted. So Oakham Citra is a quality cask beer. So it's just a Citra hopped sub 4% pale ale, but it's just really good. And like, it's the type of beer you go into a pub and you like Lee said, you'll just forget. You just drink it and you don't know. Before you know it, you've had four or five pints, and you go, oh, brilliant.
Yeah, the more modern way is to always have the new thing. And that is for successive visits to the bar as well. You don't go back and order the same thing again. But for me, with Jaipur and with Yankee, I'll have one and it's like, I've got to have another. I've got to have another. I'm not going to go and order something else. These beers are truly, truly exceptional. And I hope one day one of our beers can be regarded in the same light as one of those.
Well, yeah, I think we have a lot of people who see Tonkoko like that way, and if they see it on cask,
I hope there's some truth in that.
Yeah. The dark beer for me that if I see on cask that I love to try is
Guinness.
No, not Guinness. I was going to say Siren Broken Dream.
Oh, the one that won
Champion Beer Britain.
Champion Beer Britain, yeah.
It's such a good beer, and again, the guys at Siren are awesome people. So we're going to do something with them early next year, but we haven't decided when and what. But yeah, their Nitro Broken Dream is really good.
I've not had the Nitro
Nice
one.
Soundwave.
Soundwave's a good beer as well. So Soundwave is it a red IPA, if I remember right?
No, it's just nice, yeah.
Oh, there's-
I'm gonna say I thought Sound Rose was a pale, but that's your go-to beer. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
in the same way you say, oh,
Yeah.
I see it and I can't have anything else. That's it. Yeah.
Right, so for those off camera, everyone's off camera apart from us. For those that can't hear that, Nadia's suggestion was Soundwave from Siren. In the room then, what would these beers be for you guys? What are the ones where you see it on the
Go-to.
bar, you just have to order it? What would it be?
Stella.
Bolt maker.
Bolt maker, Timmy Taylor's.
Timmy Taylor's Bolt Maker, we've had a suggestion of.
It says to me, I've come back north. I'm home.
Oh, okay.
Ah,
See,
Right.
that's kind of the audience said Bolt maker, Timmy Taylor's, and it reminds him of coming back north, being back home. For me, what I tend to be drinking more of now than I ever used to is Timmy Taylor Landlord, because I know it's a good pint. It doesn't blow my mind, but I know it's a good pint, and it's on in every pub I tend to go in. So I'm like, oh, there's my steady. I'll go for Landlord.
There's a Pilot One.
Pilot Blonde's a great beer. So yeah, Pilot Blonde's. Yeah, if you live in Edinburgh, you're going to see that a lot.
I don't know if I've had that one.
Black Sheep, a bit of a Rigwelter, the one with the sheep on its back. Black Sheep's Russian Imperial Stout is a cracking beer. I think it's about
you don't really
9.5%.
see that very often, though, do you?
No, I remember when they first
Yeah.
brought it out, it was really good.
Sean at the Maltons used to have that in, didn't he?
Oh, he had it on cask actually. He'd been cellar aging it, and I went in about 3 months ago, and he had that on cask. I was like, well,
I'll be
half
that
of
then.
that, please.
That then. And then you best ring me a taxi.
Well, I'm going to lose the. Well, there isn't probably a weep steak tonight, but I'm going to the toilet first. Excuse me.
Ah, right, okay.
You can pour this unequally.
Hey, 2/3 to me,
Yeah.
1/3 to you. So for those of you that are joining us the first time, you will not be familiar with the sweepstake, which is people who watch us online have a little bet as to which of us is going to go to the loo first. If you bet on me going to the loo first, you generally lose. If you bet on Wayne going to the loo first, you are almost always going to win. Right. Have we got any other questions?
Yeah,
Given I'm just going to be sat here like a lemon?
I thought you had more questions.
No, we've done all the questions. All right, thank you. So next question we have is, what do you have for breakfast on Christmas Day? I'm going to get the name of this wrong. Is it Eggs Royale where you have it with the smoked salmon? Yeah, I like Eggs Royale on Christmas Day. That's what we generally. Yeah, well, I'm a fancy kind of guy. No, my approach to beer partly stems out of my love of food. So I've always enjoyed cooking. So I'm the kind of guy that has the sous vide machine at home and does all the fancy stuff like that. So yeah, on Christmas I plan out a ridiculous menu and I make everything fresh. So yeah, we always have Eggs Royale for breakfast, and then I'll do like spiced red cabbage. I love doing spiced red cabbage. It's so good. I always do that.
Who hates it?
I fucking love
It's
it.
amazing.
So
He doesn't like spiced cabbage. No.
I know that's like.
Unbelievable.
it's just
Unbelievable,
it
Jeff.
taints your gravy. When your gravy passes that red cabbage, it's ruined your gravy then.
Right.
So I'm guessing
So-
it's about
No, the question was, what do you have for breakfast on Christmas Day? And I was
Champagne.
I was apparently quite posh in saying that I have Eggs Royale.
I like eggs Benedict, not Royal. Is it Royal the salmon one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate salmon, so. But
You
no.
love Eggs Benedict. Whenever
bacon
we go
butty.
away, we usually end up drinking too much. Then we'll find a particular chain of pubs the day after,
in spoons
and I'll have a full English. And you always have Eggs Benedict
with pancakes.
with a side order of pancakes.
It's main and dessert for breakfast.
Yeah, but I love Mackie's pancakes. Mackie's pancakes.
I didn't even know Mackey's did pancakes. Right, okay. Well, I wouldn't care because it's not a thing I would order, but
Christmas Day breakfast, probably a bacon butty, but with Bucks Fizz, so a bit of orange juice
I
in.
don't know if you've got a question there that's talking about.
Put my microphone back on.
What you have
Nadia's
for
got the potty mouth today.
Yeah, sorry.
no, we've got tell us your best cracker joke.
Oh, There was one about the beer in the morning, on Christmas morning. No, for me, I don't usually have a beer until probably the afternoon. It's something other than beer, because we have beer so often that to do something special and to, well, maybe start on a 2-year barrel-aged Imperial Stout at 10 in the morning, but no.
But to be honest, it's only been the last couple of years where I've actually matured enough to not be absolutely
Hungover.
destroyed on Christmas Day from overdoing it on Christmas Eve.
So I always found this weird because when I grew up, Christmas Eve was the big day, so we'd all go out drinking where I lived until probably 2 in the morning, and then it meant you can fall asleep and not see Santa. So, but then hangover Christmas Day, and then Christmas meal was what got you back human again, and then you started drinking. But in York in particular, I found that since we've had the bar, that Christmas Eve's busy because people finish work for a couple of hours and then they get home before the last buses leave, or they go to their local pub at home. But the city centre's not that busy on Christmas Eve usually. Might be wrong this year. What was the other question?
Tell us your best cracker joke.
He's ignoring that one.
He's still trying to think of it.
No, but I can think of one joke actually. It's not a cracker joke, but it's a joke I told a friend of mine's brother when we were kids, and he wet himself, quite literally wet himself.
Oh, you haven't poured the beers yet. We've got into another beer and he hasn't poured it yet.
So, Doctor, I think I can see the future. When did this start to happen? Next Tuesday. So I told this to some guy, and he wet himself. Hi, Mark. So, right, go on. What's your favourite cracker jokes then? Who gave us that question? You best have your own answer. Where's Nadia gone?
What do you call a robbery with a bunch of flowers?
What do you call a robbery with a...
Yeah, crime with a bunch of flowers. It's a robbery with violence.
What?
A robbery with violets.
Oh, violets.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry,
Right.
South.
Yeah. Sorry. That's definitely of Christmas cracker standard. The Christmas cracker joke we just got told there was, what do you call a robbery with flowers?
What?
Robbery with violence.
It's a robbery with violets. Oh dear.
Thank you.
Do you know,
That's the one.
that makes our Christmas beer names look good.
I try.
The worst ones are the best ones though, because I see them, I just chuckle to myself. But I can't remember any of them. That's my problem.
And we're not doing very well on that front, are we? When someone says remember a joke, it's like, well, that's not
put me on the spot. Yeah.
Well, no, I know, I get that. That's not repeatable on camera. And that's not
Can't
repeatable on
do that
camera. So yeah.
So we're moving on to our last beer. And have anyone in the audience got one? Yeah. You managed to spread it between you all. So we've got the super rare barrel aged Nightmare of Brew York.
Oh, hello.
So it's a 9.8% again, like the last beer, and it's been 12-month barrel aged in bourbon barrels. So what that means is we brew the beer like we did last year, and we, instead of packaging it straight into the can or keg like we sold last year, we siphon some off straight into a barrel or straight into 5 barrels. And these are barrels that used to hold bourbon in them, and then they sat in the bourbon barrels for 12 months until this year, where we basically took them back out of the barrel, put them into a holding tank, and then basically packaged it into can for you guys for Christmas. So of those 5 barrels, it was about 1,100 litres of beer. We managed to get 650, or was it something like that? 600?
Near enough, yeah.
So we lost so much beer during the process of barrel aging it and packaging it. So much so that we way underestimated how we thought we'd get quite a lot more than this. We've thankfully stopped selling the beer when we got to a certain stage, and super coincidentally, we needed 128 cases of beer, and we got 128 and a half, I think. And the half is what we're drinking now. But every single case of pre-sold, we thought hoped we'd get about maybe 180.
We got lucky with that one.
So yeah, so thankfully we stopped selling when we did. So it's super rare. It's a really, really cool beer. When you barrel age a beer, you basically take in some of the really good characters you already had, and then you incorporate in what was in the barrel. So in this case, bourbon. So if you've first time we ever got a bourbon barrel was What's the first beer we did? Do you remember?
Was it probably Empress, wasn't it?
I can't remember. Might have been.
Or was it one of the Belgian quads?
No, it was Empress.
It was Empress.
So it was a Jack Daniel's barrel. It turned up on site, and we turned it upside down and filled one of our 5-litre jugs that we use for chemicals in the brewery. It was clean and sterile, and then poured all this like undiluted bourbon into it. It was like full of the char that they put on the inside of the barrel, but it was filtered and tasted by us all, and it blew your socks off.
No, not us at all, because
Because Lee wouldn't let anyone else have any.
I had a rare day away from the brewery, and then I returned the following day. I said, you should have been here yesterday. We had loads of bloody bourbon. Like, well, why didn't you serve me some?
So
And we're like, well, we've not opened the other ones yet. You could open them and see if there's any.
They were
and there
dry,
wasn't
weren't
any.
they? There was only one.
Every
of them
other one was
wet.
dry, apart from the one that you all got to drink.
So yeah, you impart some of the flavour from the barrel into the beer. But let's talk about the base beer. It was you might as well. It was
You just realised it's me doing this one, have you?
yeah. I've had
yeah.
2 beers.
So we brewed this for the first time last year, and as I think has been covered, it's always a barrel-aged version of the previous year's Nightmare, which is in fact in turn the previous year to that Fairy Tale. So this is the one I described earlier that was the walnut and coffee cake that was once made by my nana every Boxing Day. So yeah, I don't know. There's much more we can say on that. But
So walnut and coffee. So you do still get some of the coffee in walnut. It's nowhere near as prominent now as the bourbon is. Putting something in a bourbon barrel for 12 months, you get the bourbon come through.
But you don't only get bourbon coming through. So one of the reasons we put beer in wood is because the beer interacts with the wood, and it has the ability to change some of the compounds in the beer and transform the flavour and soften the flavour. So wood creates a thing called vanillin, so-called because it sounds like vanilla. So vanilla. So it creates that kind of creamy kind of softness. So if you when you put the beer originally into barrel, it might kind of have a certain amount of astringency, a certain amount of like unrefinedness to it. And because of its long time exposure to wood, those big compounds that might not be all that nice break down into compounds that are smaller and can be quite nice. So the longer time you have the exposure to the wood, the more that kind of process goes on. So you end up with something that's really, really soft and really balanced. It just like all comes together in this like beautifully harmonious way, as I think is happening with this beer. But that could be because it's my 4th one tonight.
That's one of the things you find quite a lot with the barrel-aged beers. Is you take something that was a nice beer initially, but you always had that alcohol harshness. So because it was a strong beer or because there was intense flavours, a little bit of harshness. So you barrel-age it and it really softens it out and it makes it just a more rounded beer. The first one we did what was it? The first Tom Coco one was the cherry Tom Coco, in wine barrels. That was pretty cool. That was it was a nice beer to start with, but it wasn't my favourite Tom Coco we'd done. It was a cherry one version. The barrel-aged version in red wine barrels was just so nice. It just reminded me of having a nice steak and a really good bottle of red wine. It was just that different twist on a drink, and then it was actually in a beer. So
yeah, it's nice to take a beer that you consider to be great, and we're putting beer. A lot of the beers we put into barrels are on Untapped rated above 4. People already think these are amazing beers, and we then put them into barrel, and then to see that additional character, how that then can develop further by that exposure in wood or through that contribution of whatever the former occupant was of that wood is amazing. But yeah, it's a big investment. When we're talking 12 months. Some of our things have been sat back there 18 plus months now.
Yeah.
We have a question at the back.
Is it hard to achieve consistency barrel aging?
Yeah.
So you're talking about having 5 barrels. One of them was still wet. 4 of them weren't. Is it hard? So I mean, if you wanted to start a production line where you were regularly barrel aging,
Right.
would it be hard to achieve a sort of sense of consistency with that?
So
is
the
it better for special editions?
So the question we've been given is, how consistent can you be when every barrel is going to be kind of individual and they're going to interact in different ways? Well, the way in which we do that is, yes, you're going to get individual characters from barrel to barrel, But what we're consuming here is all of that reblended together. And over years, would that always be the same? Probably not, for all the reasons that's just been outlined there. But we're talking about each of these casks, these barrels, being 200 litres each. That's almost nothing in terms of cans. So we have to bring them back together, and we kind of have to unify that. Obviously, we taste each of them first. When you're using wood, there's a real risk that these beers become contaminated in some form of way. Wood is very porous. There can be things growing in there that you're not aware of. So you're obviously going to taste these things before you recombine them. And it would be normal to lose about 20% of everything that you put into barrel. So it's long-term, high risk. That's why we charge you the premium for these kind of things, because we're going to lose some of it, and it's a big amount of time and storage and effort to do these things.
Yeah, pun well intended, but touch wood. We've only lost, I think we're about up to 4 barrels now in the 4 years. So we've been going a lot longer than 4 years. We've only been barrel aging for 4 years. So we've lost 4 barrels, which is not too bad considering. So what that means is that sometimes we've actually cracked a barrel and tasted it, and it's not been good enough to sell. So you would not want to combine that with the rest of the beers and spoil the rest of them. And then on one occasion, a few months into the aging process, one of them sprung a leak. So we had 200 litres of barrel-aged beer all over our cellar, which was very annoying.
I was just going to mention that is the other risk. These barrels only hold together because they kind of absorb the liquid and then they compress together. And most of the time that works, but every now and again, because they are bunged, we need them to be sealed to make sure nothing's going to get in there. Every now and again, the pressure can deform the barrel and make us lose the contents.
But yeah, it is risky, but it's also something that we love. We love barrel-aged beer, so even if we got 3 barrels for every 5, we'd still do it. We just, but unfortunately, have to work out how the costing and stuff worked.
And as is our way, we're doing it so we can drink it.
So one of the really cool things about this year's, this one beer in particular, this is the first time we've, since we moved to our new site, we actually got a inline can label applicator. So we've always gone for either a fully printed can, top to bottom, or we've actually gone for a shrink sleeve can where you've got plastic shrink sleeved on the can. We moved to labels a few months back now when it eventually arrived after the Suez Canal farce. And we did the Dreams of Brew York series, which are the barrel-aged ones, and we loved the design, but it didn't look as premium as we'd hoped. And then this is the first one that we've actually stickered, which weirdly looks better than the shrink-sleeved ones. The ones that are top to tail
It does. It really
don't
does.
look as good. These ones, I personally think they look awesome. I'm so pleased how they've turned out. Cheers, Owen. Another plug.
Another plug for you know.
But yeah,
Beer, right? It's all the really nice, tasty beer.
we're really pleased. how this
He
has
wasn't
turned
listening, so he didn't hear when we were just saying how shit a job you've done with this. No, we're just saying, since we've converted over to labelling for this particular series, we think it now looks extra premium than it did before. And texturally, it feels so much better.
out. Stop touching my can. It's putting me off.
It's not just your can, it's our can.
So
And for that, I've left you a tiny amount.
barrel-aged Nightmare premium.
But partly what we've done with this new Advent series here is, some of the beers in there are a rebranding of the original beers, but all of them have the rip-off labels, which I'm now going to try and do.
You make it look really difficult.
I'm going to make this look really difficult.
The other ones are much easier.
It'd help if I didn't bite my nails.
So one of the
we
big...
Move it away from my
Oh yeah, sorry.
Cover your microphone.
On the other ones, it would be so much easier.
It's so much easier if you're watching back at home.
Oh yeah. How easy was that? There we go.
Stick it on your jumper.
So the idea is you will be able to remove the artwork from these and return it should you wish. Because one of the most common complaints we've had over the years is, your artwork's fantastic, why have you put it on a shrink sleeve? How are we supposed to return that? So now at long last you can, because it's all done like this. You can remove that, you can put it in your fridge, you can put it in your little notebooks, whatever you want to do with
Stick
it.
it on your Slipknot jumper.
I can't tarnish this. Right. So,
Have you got one there?
I would no. This is not a question. I think this would be nice to finish with. So can we come back to this one? Oh, favourite Christmas song. It's got to be Pugs.
Yeah,
Fairy Tale of New York,
exactly.
obviously.
What do you get when you
No,
cross?
no, come on. No, let's go some distance with that one. Favourite Christmas song in the room then? What would it be?
David Bowie, Bing Crosby, Little Drummer Boy.
Last
Right,
Christmas.
we've had
Last Christmas.
David Bowie, Bing Crosby,
Little Drummer Boy.
Little Drummer Boy. Yeah, I don't even know that one.
Die
I
Hard
must have
theme
heard
tune.
it. Die Hard theme tune. She's Ave Maria, I believe. But anyone else? Stop the Cavalry.
You'll have to sing it for us.
These answers are ending up in a little bit more niche than I carried on.
Step into Christmas, Elton John.
Where's Noddy Holder in
I
all
was going to
this?
say, what's the worst Christmas song? That's the other one.
What's the word? East 17.
17.
Yeah.
God, I love that one.
That's a Christmas song.
What else would be the worst one then?
Worst one.
Darkness.
Carey.
Darkness did one, didn't they? Which was,
Oh God, that darkness one's awful.
Sal will probably like that one.
I love the way that Darkness had this like 1 year period of credibility, and now everybody just slates them for everything.
Oh, Driving Home for Christmas, we've got her.
Chris
Bing
Rea,
Crosby.
that is a good one actually. Driving home for Christmas, Chris Rea. Yeah.
That's a tune.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on from favourite Christmas songs.
So,
Two.
I think I've just got the jokes. What do you get when you cross a snowman with a vampire?
Snowbite? Frostbite? Frostbite.
There you go there, you got
Frostbite, yeah. Right. Who is Santa's favourite singer? Oh dear.
Mariah Carey.
Elvis Presley. Oh.
What does Santa suffer from if he gets stuck in a chimney? You want to see the answer? Claustrophobia.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I thought we had loads of questions to go, not shit jokes. Anyway, do you watch Die Hard on Christmas? On actual Christmas Day? So last Christmas,
I gave you my heart.
no, last Christmas, me and Polly did a proper marathon. So I got like
You ran
about
26 miles.
No, we did about 26 hours of film movie viewing. So I got Home Alone, yeah, there you go. Gremlins,
Gremlins.
Die Hard.
Never seen Gremlins.
You never seen Gremlins?
What else did we have?
Like we get this
I got loads of
cultural
them.
reference
And
all the
even
time
like
from
the-
Nadia.
the-
She's
the
a
more
little
classic.
bit younger than us, so she's never seen any of the
Miracle
films
on
that we base our
34th
film-
Street, and yeah. So over like 2-3 days, we watched them all. Polly's obsessed with Christmas films.
We were talking about Christmas songs the other day.
Have you watched Back to the Future yet?
What?
Oh, Back to the Future.
Shoot me.
No helping some people.
Have you seen Back to the Future 2 and 3 yet? Then?
What fruit would you include in your next sour? That we can answer.
Oh yeah, we've got the.
Because the next sour you're going to see from us is going to be a peach tea iced sour.
What about the? There's the sour IPA count. There's no fruit.
Doesn't
in
have
it.
fruit in that one.
How many times can you use a bourbon barrel? Depends how tight you are.
We generally only use them once. So the bourbon that's left in the barrel, the bourbon that's left in the wood, it's going to give itself over mostly into the first thing that you put in there. If you then put another beer in for a very long period of contact time, you might get more bourbon out of it, but it's going to be way more subtle. So generally it's, once for us, but for others two. Some even do 3.
Bourbon barrels are actually one of the most affordable barrels as well, because in America you can only use a barrel once, so they usually sell them across the UK and they're used for whiskey. So they're not actually too expensive, whereas some of the more unique barrels we've used have been like 4 or 5 times the price. So if we can't use them twice, then they're going to be very expensive beers we make. But we've tried a few different beers.
I love that synergy that we have between the US and Scotland. So just to extrapolate a little bit on what Wayne was saying there, in the US, when you're making bourbon, you are only allowed to age your beer in virgin oak. So every single barrel has to be brand new. It is made and used only that once.
That legislation thing.
Yeah, it's used only that once. And then it has to be disposed of in somewhere. But rather beautifully, in Scotland, for the production of Scottish whisky, they are not allowed to use virgin oak. They can only use barrels that have been used for some other thing before. So you have all these barrels that come across from the US that once had bourbon in, they then age whiskey in them. And occasionally it'll be something else like sherry or whatever, but they're super expensive. So most of all the whiskies that we drink are actually aged in barrels that once had bourbon in across from the US. Okay. The last thing I had was not a question. It says, no question, just a thanks for the beer. Found you in lockdown and made it a lot easier responsibly.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Cheers to that. And I think that's probably a very good moment to finish on.
Thank you.
So,
Cheers, guys. Yeah.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas.
Cheers. Thank you.
And happy brew year.